and welcome to my channel. I'm Mandi Grace, author of 10 young adult novels so far. I just filmed my mid-month chit-chat video for December, and while doing that sort of remembered that I haven't done a December writing craft book, which we're now calling Professional Development, courtesy of my brother. Anyway, yes, I haven't done one yet, so we're gonna pick one right now and hopefully read it before Christmas. My options currently include Writing Into the Dark, which is writing a novel without an outline, Edit Ready, which is probably about editing novels, you know, writing and world building. This one should be interesting, but like, I was hoping to pick a small one. Writing fantasy and sci-fi, how to create out-of-this-world novels, and short stories. I'm deeply interested in this one because of the stories that I'm currently writing, but also I was really hoping to pick a tiny one because it's already halfway through December and it's about to be the holidays, and I probably won't be doing a lot of reading of whatever book that I pick in the coming weeks. So I'm going to pick the smallest one, which is Writing Into the Dark, how to write a novel without an outline. I probably won't put this into practice in the vlog, but I might actually, maybe, possibly give book 4 a go with this, book 4 of my fantasy series. But probably not, because the book that I outlined not with Save the Cat was a struggle until I re-outlined with Save the Cat, and then I was fine. So I think I'm just going to stick with Save the Cat for the fantasy series. Maybe I will use this for my rewrites, which is kind of cheating because I already know the story, so like I have an outline. But anyway, maybe I'll use this for my rewrites next year for the OG Robin Hood series. Who knows? But I'm going to read it this December and we'll see what happens. For all the brave writers out there writing stories into the dark. Also, the copyright page says Killing the Top 10 Sacred Cows of Publishing, copyright 2015. But this does not appear to be Killing the Top 10 Sacred Cows of Publishing. So why does it say that? I'm confused. Okay, you guys. On like the 14th or 15th or something, when I was doing the mid-month chit-chat, I remembered that I hadn't done a writing craft book for December yet. So immediately following filming that, I filmed the intro for the mid-month, no, for the writing craft book. And now here we are, on Christmas Eve. Hadn't even picked up the book after filming the intro. So it's going real well, reading-wise. I did just start reading it. I'm 13 pages in, doing the Writing Into the Dark book. Mostly so far he's been setting up why one would want to write in the dark and not outline, talking about writing from the creative side and not the critical voice. It's all been perfectly reasonable. He briefly addressed how doing very detailed outlines then makes you bored because you already know the story, and writers at their core are readers. Their brain wants to find the story the same way they do when they read, which I have found to be true about myself because I am a discovery writer. I like having outlines. I think my stories do much better now that I use Save the Cat, because my first novels ever written, which were entirely written into the dark, were a hot mess. But I think a large part of that too, A, writing into the dark, I went everywhere, had no rhyme or reason, it was a mess. And B, I was not into the whole revising and editing thing when I first started out, so that's probably the biggest problem with my early novels. I didn't take what I had written into the dark and shape it into anything. I was just like, here you go, that's the story. Anyway, point being, I use the Save the Cat as a vague sort of, this is the direction the story is going, and then I discovery write based off of it. I don't know. It works for me. It works really well. It's like outlining, but not really outlining, and then I'm still discovery writing, but there's a direction that we're headed, so it's not completely bananas when I get done. And also, you know, I really do the whole revising and editing thing now, which really helps. Anyway, the point is, when he was discussing detailed outlines, and then your brain is like, well, I'm bored now, I already know the story. That has happened to me. So Yes, I related to that. Also, the one thing that jumped out at me first was when he was like, you just, start with a title and write into the dark. And I was like, you start with a title? What? What is this nonsense? I had one book that I titled prior to writing it, which is not the title anymore because it made no sense with the story that I actually created. Whatsoever. Nothing. So Return to Grace was once called A Promise to Keep. Makes no sense whatsoever. It really doesn't. It makes no sense. I don't think there was anything else. We'll keep reading. He did discuss how there's no one right way to write a novel. So, like, if you outline, you don't outline. You outline a little, like, do your process. But at the same time that he said that, he has mentioned multiple times how people who have stuck around or been writing for a long time, like those people who write into the dark, those people don't outline because, they're actually creative or whatever. He seems very passive-aggressive. I'm not gonna lie. He's like, there's no right way, but, like, if you're gonna do this for the rest of your life and, like, be writing forever, like, don't be the young people who outline. Every long-term novel writer has some story of getting past the need for major outlines, for major planning. A lot of younger professionals are still banging out outlines and following them. Again, no right way. But eventually, if you are going to be around for a long time and writing, you need to feed the reader part of your brain and just write for fun. Otherwise, knowing the ending of a novel, having it all figured out ahead of time, is just too dull and boring and way too much work. So yes, he says there's no right way, but, like, he's saying there is actually a right way. Also, it's getting windy, and I hope that you can hear me. Writing from the critical voice is work, plain and simple. It's why so many beginning writers describe writing a book in metaphors that make them sound like they just won a major world war all by themselves. If I hadn't defeated my critical voice, I would have long ago moved on to do something far more fun than writing from a critical voice. Yes, I hear a lot of writers, both in my writing group that I adore and just also, like on Instagram and AuthorTube and various places. A lot of writers talking about writing books as though it's this massive, difficult project. And I have never related to any of them because writing the first draft is the easiest thing I have ever done. It takes a while sometimes, but, like, it's as natural as breathing to tell myself a story. And it's fun. It's, like, the best thing ever. So I have never related to anyone who has been like, this is hard work. Is it? Now the editing and revising part I find to be more work because shaping the story after I've entertained myself is much harder. But people come to first drafts like it's a big bad deal, and I have never felt that way because it's as natural as breathing to me. So this I related to quite a bit. Apparently I turned off my critical voice a long time ago, at least in terms of writing first drafts, which I know to be true because that's how I ended up That's how I ended up publishing stories that I had not edited and revised in any fashion, because I had no critical voice. I was fully confident in all things. I developed the critical voice later on, and then I was embarrassed. But it's fine. There needs to be a balance, I feel. That's what I've come to. There needs to be a balance between the critical and the creative in order to actually make a product worth reading. I appreciate that I'm super confident when I write first drafts. I love that it's easy and I tell the stories and have fun and it's as natural as breathing. I love that. But I do feel I need to lean into the creativeness of actually editing and revising stories as well, which I'm planning on doing with the books that I'm currently writing because I want them to be perfect. I'm so excited. But, like, also I don't want to get stuck on the critical voice and not be able to finish or release the product. So I feel there should be a balance here. But I did start out without any critical voice at all, whatsoever. And I found it very strange, and I still do find it strange when people discuss how hard it is to write books. And, like, on some level I get it, but on some level I really don't because it's so easy for me. Like, ridiculously easy. Yeah. Okay, I love this. He's discussing ways that your critical voice will come at you, and this is something I have heard writers, and it bugs the bejeebers out of me when they're like, you pants a novel, you're wasting your time because then you have to fix everything. I'm sorry. That's not how this works. I love this part when he was like, you're practicing. Every new word that you're writing, you're practicing. You don't tell people practicing musical instruments that they should stop because they sound awful and all they need to do is play at concerts. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Anyway, I appreciated that. I'm gonna keep going, but that had to stop and say I actually really appreciated that. Truth. The biggest waste of time in writing is rewriting. Period. I am about to rewrite every book, practically. Well, minus 2, but like every book that I've ever published. So I take that personally, Dean Wesley Smith. The sun has gone down, which means I can't escape to film outside where there aren't people. But I hadn't finished this book of this vlog yet, and it needs to, you know, be up for tomorrow because we finally reached the point where I'm no longer ahead. Over the summer I got very ahead. But in November we finally caught up to the videos, so now I have been making them right when I need them, which is a problem. But anyway, the point is, I'd like to finish this, but I hate filming inside because people can hear me. But like, I can't go outside now because it's pitch black outside. So here we are. Currently, this chapter, he's listing things that you need in order to write Into the Dark. And he says, if you don't have these things, you're not ready yet, you can't do it. And the first one he mentioned was essentially just getting wrapped up in the story when you read. Like, you get swept up in the story, you love story so much you don't read the words on the page. And that typically happens to me with almost every book I read. Like, if that isn't happening when I'm reading a book, if I'm actually reading the words on the page when I read a book, that's how I know that I'm not enjoying the book. So I've got that one covered. The fourth thing he mentions on his list is that you're not going to rewrite the book. And he says he's going to show you ways to write without being sloppy or whatever. But he's like, you're not going to get a second draft, which makes me really nervous. He is very convinced there will be no rewriting of this book whatsoever, and that if you think of something you forgot to put in or needs to change, you just go back and fix it right then. Editing as I go has never been a good choice for me. I won't move forward if I start doing that. It just doesn't work that way. He also talked about how writing is really not linear. You don't write the way you read from beginning to end. But I definitely do, because as a discovery writer, and because I don't go back and fix things the way he would want me to, if I jump ahead and start writing things, or, you know, end up doing something that's not directly after what I had just written, when I go back to fill in those portions, the story goes off in a different direction, and so anything I wrote ahead of that just doesn't fit with the story anymore. And also, going back and fixing things while I'm writing, yeah, just makes me stop and not finish at all. I don't like any of this. If you write some dumb note to fix it later, or think it will be fixed in a second draft, you undermine all the wonderful stuff your creative voice is doing. If you believe deep down that the only real way to write a book is from word 1 to the end, then outlining is more than likely something you're going to have to do. And plan for a short career. He is not holding back any punches here. He's very sure of what he thinks. I'm officially feeling very called out. He's talking about the cycling thing he does. When he thinks of something that he missed, he goes back and he puts it in. Anyway, so he's addressing that he doesn't think it takes longer to get it right the first time around in this sort of like one cycled draft situation than like doing multiple drafts. He says, this takes far, far less time to get a story right the first time than to go back and fix it later. And that goes for putting silly brackets around something that you have to research later. I put brackets around everything. I have so many brackets. It's not even funny. I have found something I agree with. Get excited, people. He's discussing how writing to a specific length for a book is just ridiculous, and that you should just let the story be whatever length that the story needs to be, which is always how I have of my books, and I feel vindicated. Everything else up to now has made me a bit defensive, I think, but this one we are on agreement with. So I finished the book, and there are actually 40 more pages at the end of the book, which is an example of one of his other books, which I'm not reading right now because I didn't sign up to read 2 writing craft books this month. We'll read those other 40 pages another time. I finished Writing Into the Dark. It was interesting. I disagreed with much of it, as you probably saw. But I am actually curious what it would be like to do it. I want to try it at some point, at least with one novel, to just write into the dark. No idea what I'm doing, no outline, and then do the cycling process, because he only does the one draft. There's no going back when you're done. Yeah, I'd like to try it. I don't think I want to do it with the 4th and final book in the series I'm writing, but I might do it at some point, because I think it would be interesting.